What a beautiful day for a road trip. Once again, bringing you guys along with me. So today I'm headed up to Inverness so that I can catch the end of the Highland Whisky Festival, which is tomorrow at Tomatin. I've been to Tomatin before, really enjoy their whiskies, so I'm excited to get along there. I'm booked in on the distillery manager's tour in the morning, then I've got a few hours to kill over lunch, hopefully meet some people, share some drinks, and then in the afternoon I'm doing the stillsman's tour. Really looking forward to it. Just pulled over to the side of the road to readjust my tripod after a overly zealous roundabout and to share a little slice of this incredible country with you. This is what the A9 looks like for pretty much all of it. It's an incredible place to explore. So here we are, Tomatin Distillery, for the final day of the Highland Whisky Festival. Made it safe and sound. I'm a little bit early, but it's going to be a good day.
Literal translation just means exactly.
Right, in that case, if you care to follow me, we shall head off around the distillery. First of all, welcome to Tomatin Distillery. As you're probably aware, my name's Graham Newson. I'm General Manager here for my sins. As we go around today, I'll explain a bit about Tomatin. Have any of you been around here before? Yeah? Well, I'll probably take you some places you haven't been before, but there isn't really a hard and fast script for what's happening today. This is supposed to take 2.5 hours, no, 2.25 hours. If any of you on a time scale, you don't have to be away sharp. Excellent, because it's probably going to take about 4. just to warn you, when I start speaking, you'll struggle to get me to shut up. So, Tomatin itself, I don't know much of the history you know about it, but it was founded legally back in 1897. But there is history in this general area here, going back to the time of the Battle of Culloden, 1746 or thereabouts. A gentleman by the name of Gillies McBean fought in that battle and obviously killed at least a couple of dozen Englishmen with his bare hands before he was eventually overpowered by the masses and was unfortunately killed. And when the authorities came to inform his wife that she was now his widow, they actually found an illicit still in his house, and that was in the area here. We are unusual in that all of the houses you can see here, we've actually got 30 houses on site. All of them are still owned by the distillery, which is unusual. Most distillers nowadays have sold off all their housing stock to members of the public and such like, but here we've got members of staff and a few retired members of staff living in all these houses. Now that's good, in as much as in the middle of winter here we can have snow yay deep, so they have no excuses for not getting to work. Everyone who works here has probably got a wee bit more passion. It's more of a lifestyle rather than an actual job. Distillery was located here primarily because of the Freeburn, the Alpnafrith that runs through the side here. Good source of water. The railway line used to stop here, I believe, before they actually built the viaduct that goes over the valley next door, next to the village. In the early 1900s it actually shut down, which was bog standard for most distilleries that opened up in the peak back in the 1890s. They closed down within the first 15-20 years because there was a lack of demand for a while. It then reopened after about 6 years of closures, started building up in popularity, And then really in the 1950s, 60s and 70s, it took off. So in 1974 we became the biggest single malt distillery that up until about 2 years ago had ever been in Scotland. We had a capacity here back then of about 12.5 million litres of alcohol, which with modern barley you're talking of about 14.5 million litres. Despite the look of the place, there has been some more investment. I get in trouble regularly from our marketing department. I describe Tomatin as a distillery only a mother could love. It's not the most picturesque, it's not aesthetically pleasing particularly. I would say at best it's sort of industrial chic. But it's a bit like myself, I'm not here to look good, I'm here to make good whisky, and that is one thing the distillery can do. So as with most distilleries now, we buy it all in from a commercial maltster. Our main supplier here is a company called Simpson's. Ours is all Scottish for the reason that we know the farmers, that we can trace our malt right back through the system to the farmers that actually grew it, and we've got long-term relationships with them. The barley we're getting this year is, best technical description for it would be pretty crap. It's not good quality. Because last summer was so hot and so dry, the barley didn't grow as well as it might. It was too dry and too hot for it, so it didn't fill out as much as it should. So yield-wise, we're normally looking for somewhere about 410, 415, even 420 litres of alcohol for every tonne of malt. This year, our average is about 399. It's quite poor. So if you consider we're making 1.8 million litres this year, I've had to buy an extra 350 tonne of malt just to stand still with last year. And it's more expensive, and you're talking 400 plus pound per tonne. We have a separate brand here called Tomatin, which we make usually November, December time every year, usually for about 2, maybe 3 weeks. It's different in that the malt we use is actually peated in the kiln fire, so it gives you a smoky character. Because we were so big back in the 1970s, 1974, when we did the final expansion here, we actually have 2 mash tuns. We have 2 mills, 2 mash tuns, we had 24 wash packs, we had 23 stills, I should say. So it was a huge piece of kit and plant here. You will find out as we wander around it's like a rabbit warren. It was never designed, it sort of fell together over the years. When the next expansion went on, it was wherever in the buildings they could put up another one. So there is no real concept of nice flow and design with the place at all. But it does mean that we've got lots of spare equipment. What we decided was, since we were never going to be the most beautiful distillery, we'd try and be the most educational one. So that we've got this opened up. We also have a condenser that's opened up. We're going to be taking mill from upstairs down later this year, hopefully, and getting that all opened up so you can see inside it, and the weighing machine and the screen and everything. So that it's the only walking full limited ton in Scotland. Right, so what we've got here is actually the 2 mills that we have on site. This one, as you can see, was made by Porteous of Leeds in England. This hasn't done any work for the best part of 40 years now. It's been sitting here doing nothing because it used to feed the mash tun downstairs. The patent was bought over by Sizers, and they still make them actually. But they also do a lot of other engineering as well, so it's a sideline for them. See that, Dylan? 9-ton mash. It takes about 7 hours to do a complete cycle. We could do it here in probably about 4.5 type idea, but we don't need to. So why rush? Makes it easier to get the worts out of the laureate malt and such like as well.
I love that smell.
Quite a brewery at this. Right, have I got a willing volunteer? Taste, see what you think. This is the worts from it. The yeast has been added, and it'll probably be about 3 or 4 hours that the fermentation has been started. If you look in most of the yeast is still floating on the top here. We leave them for a minimum of 54 hours here, and over the weekend they can be up to about 114 hours old. So this one will be about 35, so it's still got a few hours to go before the fermentation's finished. At one stage, this entire room was full of stills. We had 23 of them, 12 wash stills up this side, 11 spirit stills up that side. But when the Japanese bought us over, there was obviously a small demand for whisky. So they actually started using the stills on this end only. They shut down that half of the stills. Used the ones on this end. But that meant that they eventually got worn out. So in the 1990s they became too thin to actually be able to use. They were threatening to collapse in upon themselves just with their own weight. They were that thin. So they moved production into that end. At the moment what we've got, 6 wash stills down the left hand side there. And then 6 spirit stills down the right. So 2 washbacks. So we do 1 mash will fill 1 washback. 2 washbacks will then fill all 6 of the wash stills. And then from all 6 wash stills we will get sufficient low wines gathered together with the feints and foreshots from the previous run to actually fill 4 of the spirit stills. So we don't need all 6 spirit stills because they're actually more or less the same size, wash and spirit, which is unusual. But the one thing you will notice is that on the wash stills there is no windows. If you've been around lots of distilleries before, tell the wash still from the spirit still because there's windows in the wash still. Some strange places like Glenglasser where I worked previously, there are ones on both, but that's because they swapped their duties over. But normally you can tell the wash still because it's got the windows to see the head rising up as you put the heat on. Here, when you're standing underneath there, you can't see anything, so it's pointless having windows. We'll go through here and have a quick look. One thing I have to say in here is you're not allowed to have your phones and cameras in use. We don't directly fire the stills. You saw the steam pans inside there, that's because there's steam passing through them. So we've got to generate the steam. And we do that here using 2 boilers. So the boilers heat up water until it turns to steam. Superheated steam. Steam's a great way of transferring heat. You know, so that's why every distillery has got a chimney, or almost every distillery. Every distillery has a chimney. Because even the ones with direct fire stills, you still need to have a boiler to heat up the water for your mashing and such. So it's boiler chimney. We got 2, which is like to show off and have more than one of everything. That's the Cooper Metal Blazer there. This one's obviously ex-bourbon. So lots of vanilla type characteristics. That one's port. That's straight full of sherry. The port's quite sweet, although that's a tawny port cask. Ruby port is even sweeter. The tawny port's slightly more nutty. It's usually older in character and a slightly more brown colour rather than being bright red type colour. But we use tawny port casks for the likes of a 14-year-old. It's finished for the last approximately 2 years. Sometimes it's 3 or 4, sometimes it's about 18 months. But we mix that together to get an average around about 2-year finish for the 14-year-old in tawny port cask. Right, you come in. This one's okay, it's not going to fall down. The light will eventually come on and reveal it. So this is number 11, where it's a rack, that depends entirely who you speak to. If you speak to someone who's got palletised warehouses, they'll tell you it's just logistics. I actually believe that if you're palletised warehouse, the casks in the middle of that stove don't have much circulation of air, so there's going to be less oxidation taking place. The cask's not going to be able to breathe to the same extent. So I know Richard Patterson, the nose from White Mackay, he reckons that for a 10-year-old you're looking more like an almost 11-year-old to get the same effect in a palletised warehouse as you would get in a racked warehouse. And I think he's probably not far off with that. but because you've got less air surrounding it, you get more wood influence flavours rather than a combination of oxidation and wood type thing. So it definitely changes the characteristics. That's not to say that that's necessarily a bad thing, because a change in characteristics gives you more to play with. But distillers will normally prefer, and master blenders will normally prefer, to have either racked or ideally dunnage, because dunnage is the ultimate. You've got a huge big roof area right enough, but your casks are only going 3 high. So it's nice and cool. At the top here in the summertime on a sunny day, it can be 25, 30, 35 degrees up there. You know, whereas down here it's nice and cool with the evaporation taking place. So that I would always argue that the best warehouses are the old dunnage ones. Fixed stone walls, low ceiling, earthen floor and such like, because it gives you a nice stable climate. Well, at the moment it's got about 8,000 casks in here. If it was absolutely full to the neck, it would be 9.5 or that'd be 9,700 odd casks we could fit in. Number 21 warehouse that we've got down the bottom holds 30,000 casks. So it's 3 times the size of this, basically. Instead of just going 7 high, it can go 9 high, and there's more of it as well. So quite big numbers of casks. We have capacity here now that we've knocked down number 12. We've got capacity for around about 197,000 casks if we were absolutely full. At the moment we're sitting just under 158,000. So we've got the best part of 40,000 spaces here, which is just a nice working amount of space, because you do need space. I see some guys working. Here we've got one warehouse operator actually operating, working, and one standing eating a donut. So what we'll do, we will start with something that is fairly readily available. The one we're going to start with is a relative youngster in comparison to the rest. This is the Tomatin 18-year-old S1 that is the most heavily sherried of all the whiskies we really do, certainly in the core range type idea. That at least 90% of this has been matured either in a finish or full maturation in sherry casks. And it's a combination of Oloroso and a small amount of Pedro Jimenez PX casks as well. This is the whisky that actually convinced me to join Tomatin. So I held out for a best part of a bottle, I would say, for myself, and by the end of that time I had no idea what the salary was going to be, I had no idea when the starting date was, but I do remember saying yes, I would take the job. So anyway, 18-year-old, as I say, quite a lot of sherry influence in there. Obviously the minimum age is 18 in reality. We don't have a huge amount of 18-year-old stock in sherry casks, so we're actually using stuff that's 20, 21, 22, 23, 26-year-old going into that. So the actual average age in the glass is probably going to be nearer 23 than 18. But we need to do that to get the right types of stocks, the right age of finishing to give us the balance of flavours in there. If you've all enjoyed that one, I see your glasses are empty. You guys thirsty or something? Aye, no worries. What we will move on to next is another bit of a youngster. The 30-year-old is a combination of 2 cask types basically. 75% of that is finished first fill ex-bourbon casks. The other 25% is just refill ex-whisky casks, ones that contain Tomatin previously. Older Tomatins, I actually think age better in refill casks. This is 1975, part of the Warehouse 6 collection, actually the 3rd one that we did. If you want to buy a bottle, I think we've maybe got some left in the shop, I'm not sure. It's £2,100 a bottle, something like that. So what's in your glass there is quite a lot of money, so actually, if you think about it in those sort of terms. This one's spent all its life in that cask. It's not been transferred into a sherry cask or anything like that. Full maturation from day one in that cask. And to me it is a fantastic example of how refill casks work fantastically well for old whiskies. When you nose it, you'll get things in there, strawberry liqueur and spices and honey and syrup and all manner of things. When you taste it, it's even more complex. You could spend days, weeks, months even trying to decipher all the flavours and aromas that are in that whiskey. It is absolutely, to me, absolutely outstanding. Right guys, we will head downstairs. I think there's a tour just about to come in.
And has anyone been to any other distilleries on the Highland Whisky Festival? Yeah, which one? So once again, he is going to give us a demonstration of how we put together a cask. And it's a bourbon cask. You're right. From your right hand side. Right hand side. So the right hand side. That's really confusing. My left, your right.
This is the 12-year-old.
12 years old, yeah.
Thank you.
And we'll try the 14-year-old outside. And this has been stored in sherry and bourbon casks. So you should pick up a little bit of vanilla from the bourbon, a little bit of raisin.
I'm really rusty.
I'm really rusty.
I'm not the dinners in ages.
So, barman off a retirement who was here for 40 years. Most of the time they come already assembled, they all arrive assembled. But Bart does a lot of repair work on them, but he obviously, when he's repairing them, he has to break them down and then reassemble them. Next whiskey, so the flavours that are in there will leach into the whiskey. So that's this is the sample. So I've got 3 whiskies to try, but the little bit I had this morning I thought was absolutely really nice, very fruity.
Really need to buy some.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's about 10 high. But this is old fashioned.